Good morning, comrades. You are listening to WHIV LP New Orleans 102.3. This is your weekly Good Morning Comrade. We have three extra very special guests this week, two returning champions and one newcomer. A new challenger comes. But yeah, first off, we have Alex joining us once again. She is known also as All Things Labor. Alex, tell the people hello.
Hi, how's it going?
Cool. Francis is also joining us. Francis G. If you go way back in the catalog, she was on the show when we talked about what was it? Ballot Line 2, if I recall correctly, Save the Public Libraries in Louisiana. Francis, what's up? Welcome back.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Good to be back.
All right. And finally, we have, again, newcomer Kareem. All three of these folks, by the way, are running for the National Political Committee in the Democratic Socialists of America. Francis and Kareem currently sit on that body. And Kareem, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. And this is my very first radio podcast appearance, so I'm looking forward to being here. Thanks so much.
Cool. Yeah, welcome. And yeah, it's really great to have y'all. And so I guess I sort of wanted to talk to, as many of the folks that are going to be involved in this convention, because it's one that has really, really high stakes for an organization like DSA. We're sort of coming off of like one of the biggest victories that we've had as an organization in quite some time, probably ranks right up there with the victory of AOC that back when she won her seat for Congress back in 2018 or something like that. It was 2018 or 2019. And recently now Zoran Mamdani has just won an election or a primary, but it's New York City, so likely obviously, nothing is settled, but there's going to be he's very likely to be the next mayor of New York City, and he ran basically a very heavily supported by DSA campaign. There's a lot of really broad things that have been kind of going forward, and I guess sort of to kick us off, Francis, would you mind sort of telling us sort of what you're seeing as at stake, and I guess really introduce yourself first, and then sort of take it off from there.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I mean, my name's Francis. I'm in Los Angeles, DSA. I first got involved kind of, like Jeff was mentioning, got involved in DSA when I was in New Orleans. And then moved to LA like 4 years ago. And yeah, would totally agree,
4
Jeff.
years?
I mean, I know.
4 years since you moved to LA? That's crazy.
I know, it is crazy. It is crazy. Time just flies.
I know.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think we're at this like major crossroads for the organization, and the Zoran victory, I mean, it just shows that like this long shot bet that we've placed on DSA for the last 8 years, like paid off. Like our like political experiment has real traction and real roots. And I think like this convention is a big turning point where we kind of decide whether we like are going to double down on mass politics or not. And so I think we're in a big turning point, and that's also very like exciting for the organization.
Alex?
Yeah, absolutely. Just we're so lucky to have Francis here in Los Angeles, by the way. I just want to state that I'm sorry, Jeff. I know.
You stole her from New Orleans. You stole her from us.
I apologize to New Orleans. I love New Orleans. But just like an incredible comrade, and my involvement in DSA happened when my coworkers and I mentioned this last time as well, Jeff, but when my coworkers and I unionized the second time, and we were looking for support because we were just being severely union busted by this nonprofit, that had a lot of money, and we were looking for support. And DSA, it was at the height of the pandemic. We're like, who can provide any kind of support? It looked like DSA was super pro-labor. We reached out, joined the labor committee, and off the jump, they were like, what do you need? And it was, one of the things that we did need support on was like getting like a petition sent out when some things were said that were like really egregious to us. And DSA had like a platform. And it was just so incredibly helpful. And not only that, other members, which by the way, we're running on the groundwork slate with a total of 7 groundwork members running for the National Political Committee. So we hope eight. Thank you. As you can see, math is not my.
It's you and 7 others. I know what you're thinking. I have that. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, anyways, it's just like we're workers, we're rank and file, we're individuals that have like this lived experience, and I think we have like a diversity of a of of a slate as well. And yeah, it's just really exciting, and just getting more involved, getting that support from DSA, and understanding how can we implement and how can we replicate the things that we've been seeing in all our chapters that have been successful, especially what's happening in New York, and Kareem can talk more about that as well. But this is an exciting time, and I think this is why we're so excited to be running for the National Political Committee on the Groundwork slate.
Sure, Kareem.
Yeah, sorry. I think one of the things that I was going to ask for the prompt again, but I just pulled it back. I think one of the main things that I think, you bring up the AOC race and like the sort of contrast and, maybe similarities between that and the current moment. I think the thing that's so exciting about the Zoran race is how much like this is a DSA campaign, right? Like this is something that DSA, there's like progenited in DSA, like he came out of DSA as like a Queens electoral OC member. He was like a campaign manager. Like this is a DSA guy through and through.
Could not be more cadre, right?
Exactly. Yeah, no, not at all. And like he's as dyed in the wool as you get. And I think one of the things that's really exciting about that is like, I think to the extent that like we've had issues with AOC, it's like we weren't the ones that were, had been her home for political development. We weren't the ones that had, delivered her victory. I think, she has played, I think, a critical role in the development of DSA. I think people got really excited about her win and saw DSA as a place to come and, stake their political home. And like, I don't think that there is a Zoran without, kind of shocking the establishment back in 2018. But like, I think that is the key difference. And I think one of the things that's so exciting about this political moment is like, yeah, like as Francis said, like we have built a machine over the last 8 to 10 years that's saying like, normal people, like, I'm going to fight back. I don't have to take this. I'm not going to watch them, these jackboot thugs, steal my neighbors. I'm not going to, stand by as like, there's a genocide in Palestine. I'm not going to like, see my neighbors not be able to afford healthcare and rent. And I'm going to do something about it. And I think there's something really powerful about taking those kinds of political tools and putting them in people's hands. And this is the result, right? Is like, now we're on the cusp of winning the mayor of a city of 8 million people. Like this is a huge deal. And I think that's really what sets us apart. And I think really what puts the stakes of this convention into display is like, are we going to keep doing this sort of thing, or are we going to turn inward? And, I think us on the Groundwork slate, we're pretty adamantly pro keep doing this sort of thing. Let's not turn inward.
So you mentioned, and I think this is really important, that like because so that y'all are clear on where you stand on this. You mentioned that there is a mass politics vision that y'all are putting forward. Is that juxtaposed with something else that you see in the organization? That's another sort of like major strain that you see. I think it would really be interesting to me to sort of like lay that out and to sort of hear what the sort of like pluses and minuses of both are.
Yeah, I think, and sorry, my dog is barking.
It's okay. We love you, Carmel.
Kind of a drama queen. Actually, maybe someone else should go before I wait for
Go ahead, Kareem.
Yeah, I was going to hop in on this one just because I think like, I think our internal opponents, still comrades nonetheless, but internal opponents, I think, they bristle at the notion of like sort of mass politics versus sectarian as a framing. And I mean, it's certainly, I think very favorable towards us. And so I can understand that. But I think like the reason that we like this framing is that I think really fundamentally, the debate is not whether or not DSA should grow. It's just over who the next million members of DSA are. Right. And I think to us, when we look around, we see millions of depoliticized union members who are looking to put power in their hands, right? Like, you've got SEIU members in LA, as we were talking about beforehand, just, like saying, I'm not going to let ICE steal my neighbors and standing up and fighting back. And like, we look at those people who have made a choice that they would like to become politicized or are like in that sort of pre-politicization phase of, their political development. And say like, those are the next million DSA members. And to us, I think that's like the mass politics vision is like, like putting that kind of power in people's hands. I think like, when we look at models, I think we look to the Pink Tide. I think we think about Bolivia is a really excellent example of this. But I think as opposed to, I think the alternative is and I'll do my best to do this framing here, is that like there are a million people who are already politicized, but like they have turned away from DSA for whatever reason, and right, like they're whether they're part of like a book club or they're part of like PSL, part CPUSA. If we could just get them all under the umbrella, then we'd also grow. But I think if we have skepticism in that, it's one, we think that there are a lot more people who are sort of depoliticized and could become politicized. And I think, personally speaking, like, when we think about the sort of non-DSA left as it's constituted, like those are people that have made a choice to not join. And so we would love to have them in the tent. And you certainly have a home in DSA, and we'd love to have you be on board and build with us. But I think we think that it is a mistake to focus on those people who have already made a decision to not join it and instead look to the masses, look to unions, and, get those people on board.
There are millions of working class people that are out there that have no like ideological commitment. Like if we're literally just sort of recruiting in our own already kind of walled garden of the sort of American left, which is not significant, not big, and it's also not super working class. If I want to be completely honest, we look out and we see that there are millions of workers that don't have a political commitment, that don't have a political analysis, and don't have a way to sort of express themselves. And it is sort of really important to get to as many people outside of the sort of like universe that we currently have before the fascists do, quite frankly. That's the stakes, right? Alex.
Yeah, if I can add really quickly too. So when I say that my involvement into DSA, like super frank, at the beginning I was like, oh, I might not have like super left leaning ideologies for me to be even in DSA, like I haven't read all the theories out there, I'm left leaning, but I'm not sure, like would I be even accepted, right? And I remember like organizing your workplace is so radicalizing, and it could be a moment to get more folks involved. That for me was 100% what happened. And I'm not a unique individual. Like we know this is happening all over the country, right? Like workers understand their lived experiences. So, this kind of mentality of, like purist kind of ideology doesn't work. And I think anyone who's actually organized your workplace, you understand how difficult it actually is, right? Because the majority of people fall somewhere in the center of organizing your workplace when you have issues that are directly impacting you, right? But in building those relationships with individuals, we can get more people who are like, you know what? Yes, I know what's happening right now is wrong. I may not be able to like name it. I may not know, like, I know capitalism seems to absolutely not be working. Maybe I'm a little nervous about the word socialism, but that's why you have other comrades to be able to have these political education like courses and classes, and just being in community with other comrades that help you say it's actually okay to state it. Yes, I am a democratic socialist, right? And I think that's a lot more inviting than, if you're standing kind of on your ground of like, well, I know better than you, so you have to like, that's not that others workers, that others the working class. And I think it's really important for us just to be able to like just to name it and say, no, yeah, this space is for all of us. And that's how we, on this mass politics like scale, are able to actually make massive gains and things that we've been doing here in Los Angeles as well. But so yeah, I think it's one of the reasons why I was very like excited to join Groundwork as well, because it's a lot of comments that have been putting in the work, or organizers, and there's incredible organizers in other caucuses as well. But like the ones that I've met here, I'm just like really grateful to be able to like move with this goal, because I know there's so many people that are like that. There's so many people that are upset about both parties. And there's a lot of individuals who understand that it's working class values and solidarity that's actually going to get us material gains.
Francis?
I mean, even Alex said it, like everything I was going to say much more. It's just I feel the political outline organization right now is this pressure of like,
I'm sorry, Francis, you're a little bugged out right now. Really quick though, you're listening to WHIP New Orleans 102.3. This is Good Morning Comrade. Yeah, unfortunately, you're frozen right now, Francis, but we can circle back to that in just a moment. I do want to ask sort of another question on that component. I just wanted to kind of put another point on it too, because one of the things you said, Kareem, that was like, you said that some of sort of the people that we have is that groundwork rather. I'm not affiliated with any caucus at this point, and I probably never will be again after some previous experiences. But I will say this, that you mentioned a sort of like, you know, people might bristle at the mass politics versus sort of, you know, the other approach. I do hear also people within DSA, and this is, I think, a much less useful distinction, this sort of like internal idea of DSA right and DSA left. I find that to be completely incoherent and something that is, I don't know. I know that during the Zoran campaign, there was, and maybe I just need to log off of Twitter, but there were people on there who were just like, you know, question a lot of the, even getting involved in any kind of electoral campaigns, anything like that. And then, you know, when this is successful, I see those very same people who have those same critiques trying to sort of like ride the wave. And I do welcome people to come in to do that. That's awesome. However, I do find it a little bit like, I don't want to say cynical, but like opportunistic for people to act in that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, it's certainly like, I will admit, like, it tests the limits of magnanimity sometimes, where it's like, you know, like, but I do think like one of the things that I think is the danger of internal culture within DSA is that like it makes the internal battles and internal, you know, disagreements like kind of the main focus, as opposed to like just sort of saying like, well, you know, like, I'm really glad that we're all on board, like, let's kind of move forward. And so like, I think like, you know, when
I'm already hearing people talk about how we're gonna like hold Zoran accountable before he's even elected to mayor. It's like, holy, like, let's calm down. Okay, there's going to be mechanisms and communication measures that are established between this, as there have been in previous campaigns, after the initial, like, the task at hand is completed. Like, let's not get the cart so far before the horse that, like, you know, it starts running over the people next to, you know, on the road.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I think it's one of those things where I think, you know, I was thinking about this the other day, you know, at the risk of just pulling in Twitter discourse, like people talking about, you know, Zoran and like, you know, the fact that he's going to be running NYPD. And it's like, I promise, like, you know, you're not the first person to realize this, right? Like, you know, like this was one of the first initial considerations, is like, wow, we would be running NYPD. And so, you know, I think, like, you know, I think one of the main strengths of DSA is our democratic input. And I think that, like, if you are interested in tackling these kinds of questions, like, join DSA. Like, that's where we're having these kinds of discussions. That's where we're figuring out, like, what is our actual plan. But like, you know, I think one of the main reasons that DSA is successful as an organization is that, like, we have made a decision to try the hard thing consistently. And we are going to fail sometimes, and we are going to end up in tricky situations with a lot of contradictions. But like, fundamentally, like, I think we all feel like we have a responsibility to try. So like, certainly, you know, like, I think, you know, when we're thinking about like accountability down the road, like, I think I'd like to have him screw up, you know, first before we're already trying to throw him under the bus. But like, you know, I think Zoran has shown that he is accountable to the left. You know, he's made sure that, like, his base knows that it's his base. He's rooted in the Democratic organization. But like, you know, in terms of like the internal, like, how do we approach it? Like, you know, certainly we bristle at the framing of like right versus left. And I think like the reason I was qualifying it in that way is that, like, you know, I personally don't love to be, you know, qualified as right versus left personally. Like, and so I bristle at that. I'm sure they feel the same way about the other framing, but like, you know, it doesn't really make a lot of sense when you really dig down into it. Like, there certainly are some things where the NPC does break down on those kinds of lines, but there are things where groundwork has a lot of overlap with Mug, and there's things where SMC has a lot of overlap with BNR, and there's things where, like, so even surprisingly, like, groundwork and Red Star can come together and, you know, figure out a couple things. So that's all to say, like, it works as a very, very vulgar framing, but when you really drill down into like what does the actual internal, like, culture look like on the NPC and within the organization, it's just not as simple as it seems.
Yeah. You want to add on to that, Francis?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that we are like the right left framing has really contributed to the like intense polarization and like hardening of like factional lines in the organization in a way that like doubles down on this idea of like the big tent, meaning sort of like the leaders of these different mini organizations coming together and like just having a slim majority for one direction or another, instead of like kind of meaningful like hashing out of differences and deciding on an actual unified strategy.
Mhm.
So I really dislike the right left framing, both yeah for the reasons Kareem said, but also just because it's contributed to this like hardening of the organization along
Mhm.
particular factional lines. And I don't think we should be building like a collection of microsects. Like I think we should try to have a unified strategy where we all move in with collective action and actually like leverage our power.
Mhm.
If I could
Um,
just really, really quickly
mhm.
hop in, there's just one really fast thing I want to add, which is like one of the things about the NPC is like, to Francis's point, is that it does, there is no incentive to work together, and like I think that is maybe one of the most poisonous things about the body, is that it incentivizes this microsect culture. On the other hand, like the Democracy Commission was just a really successful project that we just launched as DSA, and like we're
Can you lay out what the Democracy Commission is?
yes,
Like,
yeah.
I think, yeah.
The Democracy Commission was a commission that was formed at the last National Convention, and basically what it did was it tasked like a group of comrades who were elected from across the organization to come together and research other parties around the world, research DSA, see what works, see what doesn't, and see how we can just kind of do massive reforms across the organization.
Mhm.
And I think, because that's all to say, we've had failed reforms in I think the last 3 or 4 conventions,
Mhm.
and so DSA is still operating on a structure from like pre 2016 when the organization was like 10,000 people.
Mhm.
So like basically like we've decided that we're going to come together and good faith work together to overcome that. And the Democracy Commission had incentives to say like let's all work together here, and the results are that it has been really successful. Like we're probably going to pass a pretty significant reform to the organization at this national convention, and everybody is bought in. Like everybody from the furthest right to furthest left caucus, as the vulgar framing, like that's a huge deal. And if we can
Mhm.
find a way to take that culture and put it forward onto the NPC, then I think we'll be successful. I think it bears thinking about like how do we carry those kinds of good feelings in and see how we can work together. But I think it's worth trying.
Mhm. One of the things that I've also noticed as I've been a member of DSA probably since 2017. I've been involved in 2 different chapters at multiple different at basically from the rank and file level all the way up to leadership level in both. And one of the things that I do find that's like really remarkable, and maybe we can talk about this as sort of like how it relates, but like when it comes to the day-to-day functioning of a chapter or even political campaigns that take place, there is very little interaction that takes place between, or at least visible, like from rank and file membership between like each local and the NPC. Is like a million miles between those 2 different things. And if you're not a delegate to convention, even if you are a delegate to convention, or even if you are, like the you probably don't know very much about the like broader politics of what's going on within the organization, the broader campaigns, and like the only people that really do know about that kind of stuff are like extremely online. And I do think that it's really worth pointing out, because it is like when people start making these broad sweeping organizational critiques of something like DSA, they're like, oh, they are bad, they're like a bunch of Zionists or whatever, or all kinds of crazy things that I do keep hearing. I just sort of like think to myself, like, I know one of the campaigns that restarted the Richmond chapter here was a ceasefire, getting the city council in Richmond to pass the ceasefire measure and to divest from investments that would benefit Israel, and that's like one of those things. It's like you can only make that critique if you're not paying attention to the organization, I suppose. Alex, you look like you want to say something.
Yes, I do want to say something. For me, it was just like I'm from like Southern California, right? And I got involved in DSA first in the LA chapter, but then I went to grad school up in upstate New York, and then I was in the Bay Area. So, anyways, the something that I hear constantly is DSA is so white. DSA is so white, and it's full of like, just like white dudes, and and I'm not disagreeing that that's 100% probably like
There's a lot of white dudes, we know.
there's a lot of white dudes in different chapters, but like in Los Angeles, it's very POC. Like it's dominated by people of color. In fact, so it's interesting because it's like I understand where like that sentiment comes, or people, people that I've spoken to who used to be members are no longer members. It's because they had some kind of like issue with the personal, like with another individual, which is like fair. Like we're human, that happens.
It happens.
But like again, like in the workplace, I'll give you an example. When we were organizing, there was one individual who was kind of on the fence. And then when we, just by process elimination, we were able to figure out how they voted. And so they had voted no. You're right. They had voted no for organizing. And it became such a like an issue with people that had voted yes, right, that were very pro-union, that they like cut this person off. They're like, I don't want to talk to you. I'm done with you. It was a very divisive,
witch hunt type stuff.
Totally. And I want to say this is 100% because of the boss's doing, right? Like they want to create this division. And I remember in that moment being like, okay, I know this woman. I've worked with her. We worked with immigrant kids, and I know that she really cared about our clients. I truly care about my clients. So like for me, even though I was incredibly hurt, because we had been putting so much effort to improve our working conditions, including hers, knowing that she had a lot of grievances. I made a decision to not cut her off, and be like, you know what? No, like I'm going to understand that she felt she had to vote this way, and I'm going to continue to have that relationship with her. And even though a lot of other people said, I'm done, like middle finger up, I'm done. And it was because it was such a contentious, like fight even after election when we're actually trying to get our first contract. We were
such cases.
Exactly. Yeah. In this like outlier, that never happens. And she and we were losing our supporters. Their supporters were so fed up, and they kept quitting, and they kept quitting, and they kept quitting. And it was just like we're like, we're about to get decertified. We're about to lose our election. In fact, they did file 2 decertification petitions. And I remember at one point, like I went to her, something like they said something to me like really like that was like super terrible. I'm not gonna say here. And I went to her and I said, hey, this happened to me during bargaining. And you know what she said? Because we continued to have a relationship, she said, what do you need me to do? And she signed on to a letter. She publicly signed on to a letter going like toe to toe with our president of the entire organization. And she's like, that is not okay. And that is 100% because the relationship that I had with her. And I think that's one of the things that, for me, that's why I do all things labor and have like whatever thousands of followers online, is because it radicalized me. Like this has made me realize that the epicenter of everything we need to fight for is through labor. And DSA is that vehicle for me. And it's obviously, I'm not going to lie here and say it's like it's perfect. It's chaotic in many ways.
Insane.
It's insane. But so is organizing. And I'm not leaving organizing. I'm not leaving the labor movement because there's a couple of individuals that are upsetting me. What I'm doing is building more relationships with my other comrades and understanding at the end of the day, even if we're going to have disagreements, I know who my enemy is. And the enemy is the billionaire capitalist. That's who our enemy is. And I think as we continue to move in that way, we can understand, like, what Kareem and Francis were saying earlier. Is just like that's how we move, and that's how we are able to actually build, by building these coalitions. And that's why I'm still incredibly involved in my union and also in DSA.
100% agree with everything that you just said there. You are listening to WHIV LP New Orleans 102.3. This is Good Morning Comrade. We have Alex, Kareem, and Francis joining us. They are all members of various chapters. Kareem is from New York, Alex and Francis from LA, and they are all running for the National Political Committee of the Democratic Socialists of America. And yeah, I really did want to sort of like drill down on what you just talked about here, this sort of like this grace that we need to have for our fellow workers and for our fellow sort of like organization members, comrades, etc. Like that is something that I mean, I'm not telling you to try and find that online because you ain't going to find it there. But like part of the reason that is the case, because like when you're online, you don't have any stakes. But when you are engaging with people, when you talk to people, when you're in the same room and working together towards the same thing, or even if you have somebody who disagrees with you, you at least have to sort of talk to them and explain, or at least understand that like this is somebody who is committed to this, you know, organization or whatever, and they have a different approach. But I'm just sort of like reiterating a lot of what you just said here. But like, I think it is really worth emphasizing that there is going to be conflict, there is going to be disagreement, and we're all comrades at the end of the day. Anybody want to add on to that? Because I do want to change subject a bit.
I'll just say really briefly, like I think that this is all kind of tied together with different, like, you know, the incentive structure thing, as well as like the like for us to be able to work together on NPC. It's not dissimilar from having a coworker that won't sign a union card and then everybody wanting to write them off, right? Like I think that these things really are
It's an
all
organizing problem. Yes.
Yeah, it's an organizing problem, and like I think it's like, and same thing also with like, you know, people that I think had been like critical of Zoran's race who are now really excited about it. Like it tests the limits of magnanimity to be able to, you know, weather these kind of criticisms and then put the project before your own personal grievances with other people. I've certainly struggled with this. Like I think that there's like a constant tension between like fighting within the organization to protect the project and also like fighting to make sure that like, you know, it's not the only purpose of this isn't to fight each other, but it's like a greater purpose is socialism within our lifetime. And I think like if there's anything that I think, you know, we really suffer from a lack of from it, it is that kind of magnanimity. And I think like in general, I think, you know, that's kind of something that we try to project as groundwork, is that, you know, let's build DSA first. Let's build DSA together. We can disagree and we're going to disagree vehemently, but as long as we're all on board and walking in the same direction at the end of it, then I think we can make this work.
Yeah. I do want to move on to, you mentioned groundwork a couple of times as the sort of group that you are involved in. There is a platform that you guys are running and also a suite of resolutions that you guys are sort of putting forward at the convention. I guess, could you sort of like lay a little bit of that out for me? So I guess lay out what is groundwork first, and then we can sort of talk about the resolutions a little bit after. Francis, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, for sure. So Groundwork is a DSA caucus we formed a little under 2 years ago. We first ran a slate of candidates for NPC last cycle and then formed the caucus after that, after getting some folks elected to the NPC. I think we, some of the things that really unite groundwork folks and bring us together within this organization is like a core belief in like DSA as this historically unique vehicle that we can use to build the party and build a party for democratic socialism. I think another thing that really unifies us is a belief in like the centrality of campaigns specifically. So not just like electoral campaigns, but you know, anything that really pits like working people up against the capitalist class is gonna radicalize you. Like Alejandro was talking about. Like it, you know, this is part of how we develop people as democratic socialists, and it's also part of how we just build power for working people. And it's like, yeah. So I think the kind of centrality of like campaigns that pit us against the capitalist class and like put us into motion, I think is a big part of what unifies groundwork. And then through that is this process of like class formation and like helping all of our like part of the class, you know, part of this this agent that had like unique. Oh, is my Wi-Fi bad again?
Yeah, you dropped out for a second there. Just kind of 10 second rewind.
Okay. Well, centrality of campaigns, class formation, and like DSA will be the party. I think those are like three key things that really unify groundwork.
Kareem, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Francis really nailed it. I think overall, like this belief in building DSA first is, I think, at core what brings us together. In terms of like the actually, sorry, it's a little loud where I am. I'm going to pass it, Alex. But okay, cool. I just wasn't sure if you could. But yeah, basically, like this idea that like campaigns build DSA, I think, is really fundamental to us as groundwork. Like, I used to be the chapter chair of DC DSA, and like we had this working group centered formation, and it used to drive me crazy because it's just like this group of people who meet once a month, once every week, whatever, and like what's the work that's being carried forward, right? Like those working groups could produce campaigns, but really what motivates members into action is, you know, having something that they can like feel ownership over, right? Like, so when we think about like the Zoran campaign, like we were able to tap 50,000 volunteers for that because of the fact that it's like low pre-needed skill level. You just show up and say, I want to talk to my neighbors, help me talk to my neighbors. And then that's how you tap people in to build DSA, right? Like as opposed to just like, now you got to come to this working group meeting once a week and we're going to talk about something. And then maybe once every 6 months, like it'll be a vote that matters kind of thing. But like, that's not a model that excites people. It's not a model that mobilizes people. I think when we think about the way that campaigns work, it's like, how do you actually get people out? And like these models have shown time and time again that, you know, campaigns really drive people into action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And on that note, like I said just a moment ago, y'all have put forward a suite of so a resolution is sort of something put forward to essentially make priorities for the organization at the national level going forward. And you guys have put forward a number of those. Who wants to talk about that one? Alex, you want to pick it up?
Yeah, I definitely would want some support from Francis Kareem because I know they've been working much more on it. We've kind of been holding it down in LA with just the rapid response that DSA is.
Oh yeah,
with immigration that we can definitely talk later. But we have a really exciting one. It's called like fighting fascism, and I was talking actually with Francis about it this weekend. But it's kind of just like Kareem was saying, is making DSA like that vehicle to fight fascism, right? And I think kind of going back to what we're discussing,
sure,
there are moments in people's lives again that with these lived experiences that make them feel power. And you know, organizing is one of them. But then it's also doing things that are not sexy. Like, you know, I'm sorry, but phone banking is not sexy.
No, it's not.
But it's super important.
It's so necessary. It's like breathing.
It's so important. And, you know, actually I wrote on my Substack once called like House Visits Work, you know, because I went with UFW, we were doing a blitz, and I was with the organizing director, and he's awesome. Shout out to him. And we got into every house. We knocked in. We got in. Like if they were home, we got in their home. We didn't only have a conversation. We got in, and they were offering us like refreshments. What do you need to drink, etc. So for me, it was so eye-opening, especially someone who has used social media to organize the workplace with our coworkers. Like there's a lot of things that we can do as well that is very exciting. I'm also just joined the National Comms Committee to really kind of help with that as well, of the things that we can do using DSA and using the tools to meet workers where they're at, right? Which is online. And I've said this before too, but you know, sometimes unions are like, they're stuck in the 80s when it comes to being able to use tools to meet workers now, you know, and I think this is something that we can do, and this is something that we can like replicate across different chapters and across different states to really, you know, I had a conversation with one of our co-chairs, Ashik, who's also running on our slate, on our groundwork slate, who's one of the co-chairs for DSA, of just kind of like his experience speaking to different like left parties in Germany and Latin America that were talking about how they were able to really, one of the key instrumental tools that helped them revitalize their party was using comms and digital strategy. You know, so like, and I'm not saying it like as you know, in the Kamala Harris way, like you run a very like cool, go queen, you know, like
instead of having policies, you just have social media, and like they expect that's not what you're talking about.
That's not what I'm talking about. And for example, I think Zoran's campaign is a great example of this, and we're seeing other like progressive, like younger candidates that are running, which is great. But like, you can't run it only on that. You know what I mean? Like that's not what it is. What it can help you is when you have no money, right? And you have, you know, what was it, Kareem, like 50,000 volunteers and like that are willing to go. I mean, we had people in LA that were like from groundwork that were willing and ready to go to New York to canvas and door knock. You know what I mean? This is exciting. So like, how do we use all these different tools and all our different skill sets to be able to do this? And one of the major ones, back to your resolutions, was the fighting fascism, and kind of just really setting the plan in motion to figure out how to do that with our with our organization.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also just really quick to add on to that, and then there's something I want to talk about, which is, but yeah, the thing I wanted to stick onto that is like, you know, one of the things that I think was really successful with the communications plan, especially, was that, you know, Zoran spoke to voters like adults, right? Like there wasn't like this kind of like glitzy, glammy, just like all flash, no substance. Like they're very well produced videos, and you know, but they're not gimmicky, right? Like it's like your rent is too high, I'm gonna freeze it, right? And like it helps.
Very direct messaging.
Yeah, it helps to have a very good looking guy, you know, be able to look straight into the camera and speak.
He is handsome,
but
isn't
like he's very handsome. But like I think it's like he didn't, like if he was running on that just kind of flash and no substance, then like I think he'd be exactly in the waste bin with, you know, everybody else that's tried that strategy. Like there's substance to the message, and that's really what drives it.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of the resolutions, I'm really excited about. I think there's just a few offhand. The first one is, I think, build to 2028 in the presidential election is really exciting to me. And I've sort of come from previously like a school of thought about like being somewhat conservative with our approach to electoral, and that like, you know, we should swing, but we should swing for races that, you know, we have a good shot of winning, right? So state assembly, city council, places where we can deliver wins and run cadre candidates so that, like, you know, they stay accountable to the organization, you know, they don't just get sucked up into like the sort of democratic machine. My own philosophy has been totally turned upside down in the last few weeks, right? Where we've seen, I think, basically like, you know, a shock victory from Zoran that like shows that we can scale our politics like this, you know. Yeah, inshallah, I should say. It's shock victory for the primary, you know, inshallah, shock victory in general.
Yeah.
But you know, so that plus at the same time, federally, Democrats have just totally rolled over in the face of the big beautiful bill thing, right? So like, you know, you've seen
they would rather attack Zoran Mamdani nationally and have that be their top priority than to stop $800 million in Medicaid cuts and, you know, huge transfers of wealth to the wealthy, and making ICE as well funded as more than most militaries in the world. It is
exactly
insane. Like
100%.
I mean, when you look at it, the Democrats' priorities are what they've always been. It's just like seeing it in real time when the stakes are so high. I'm sorry, I could not help. I just exploded with words.
You're absolutely right. Like, I mean, that's like, and you can't separate these things, right? Like, there's a reason that we won this race, and there's a reason that, you know, they failed to really meet the moment here, right? And like, I just really briefly, I just want to say, like, people who the immediate criticism is like, well, they don't have majorities in either chamber, what could they do? That was also the case in Trump 1 for the first 2 years. And what they were able to do was they marshaled mass support, right? They said, like, you know, hey, if you're anti-Trump, get out into the streets, call your senator. And like they were able to flip Republicans to prevent the worst things from happening last time, right? And they just have totally not done any of that. And so what that has left is a vacuum, a DSA-sized vacuum for us to fill. And I think that, like, when we're looking at putting power in people's hands, this is the type of thing that people are looking to get involved with, right? So, like, it's campaigns that shake up the status quo. It's voting for candidates who are actually going to fight for you. It's about, you know, like, actually, like, meeting a moment and organizing the masses to, like, stand up for our comrades and neighbors. So when we start, the reason I bring this up is to say, like, 2028, now we have this huge opportunity that, like, even 6 months ago, I would have probably said, you're crazy. What do you mean DSA is going to run a presidential candidate? And now I'm sitting here telling you, why not? You know?
Hear me?
Yes, yeah, we can. Can you hear us?
Sorry. I know we were talking about the resolutions, and I wanted to just also add the other thing that Groundwork is excited about this convention is an opportunity to just strengthen our internal democracy within DSA, and that's our one member, one vote proposals. So the idea here is that every member should be able to vote on really important decisions that we make at the national level. You mentioned earlier, Jeff, that there's this huge disconnect between the national and the locals. It's literally like just separate organizations at times, honestly. And that's because like Rankin...
And each local is its own separate organization too. It's like 1 million different people that have different priorities that operate different ways, but they just happen to have the same DSA banner. It's crazy.
It's really crazy. It is really crazy. And you know, you see what is possible when we really operate with unity. Like, I mean, Zoran in New York, and like so many other just examples of just like what is possible when we're really all like marching in lockstep toward a shared goal. But anyway, I think a huge part of why that happens is because like rank and file members in DSA don't really have a lot of say into how the national organization is run. And there's two like really specific ways that we want to reform that this convention. Like, one is that if we're going to make endorsements of politicians at the federal level, we should have a member vote on it. And so that's one member, one vote for federal endorsements. That's how most of our chapters do it. You know, you go to a chapter-wide vote if you're going to have an endorsement. Why don't we do that at the national level? And then the other thing is one member, one vote for our national political committee. So having like rank and file members be able to vote directly on NPC members. And I think these are just two ways. There's definitely a lot of ways that we could improve democracy within DSA. Like sometimes we have we have a lot of decision making, but we don't have robust internal democracy. And so it's like we spend a lot of time like navigating that decision making, but we're not actually getting like meaningful input from rank and file DSA members. So those are two other things that we're super excited about as groundwork.
And that makes sense that people wouldn't pay attention to that if you're gonna feel very disconnected as a member from something like the NPC. If I'm a rank and file member, I'm not going to be a delegate, I'm not going to go to convention, and I got no say in it. What do I care who's on the NPC? Who gives a crap? Like, but like if you actually have some stakes in there, have some say in there, people might actually get more engaged with the national organization in a more meaningful way, and can also, it's also a decision that's being made by not the most online people within the organization, which we kind of need that. I don't. We need a like onlineification of DSA, I suppose.
No, yeah, I think that's definitely right. I also just wanted to really, really quickly highlight. We have one called DSA, Make DSA More Diverse, which the intention is exactly what it sounds like. The reason I wanted to bring this one up is basically that. So what it does is it reestablishes this committee that we've had for several years called the Multiracial Organizing Committee, MROC for short. And MROC is personally very near and dear to my heart. It was my first foray into national politics when it was first established. I think back after the 2021 convention, I got to go it was probably November of 2021 or sometime in 2022. I can't exactly remember. But it was my first time getting to go somewhere to meet people who are doing the thing that I am doing nationally, right? Like I was already really involved in my chapter. I think I was the chair of DC DSA at that point, but I had never really gotten to break out of my chapter. And just to meet like other people of color who are like dealing with similar struggles across the country, like it was a really invigorating experience. And it taught me like just sort of like how much is common in our organization, what the kinds of like common struggles that people of color tend to have. It's I don't think that this sort of thing needs to be zero sum. Like there are other great groups that are seeking to elevate people of color within DSA, and I'm glad that they're doing that. But one of the things that's special about MROC is that it puts organizational resources towards talking to the people of color that are already here and saying, what do you want to see out of DSA? How would you change DSA to make it more inviting? And I think that's what it takes, right? Like it's like we don't need to reinvent the wheel here. Let's just put some resources towards recruitment.
Yeah. Anything that would get DSA past the complex that it currently has, where it's just obsessed with how like white it is or whatever, like it's definitely something that's has a major impact on the organization. And I also do feel like there are some people within the organization that sort of take advantage of that.
Really fast, just to tie it all together. Also, like in terms of like our vision for this being campaigns based, like in my experience, like hemming and hawing a lot about like DSA being too white has not been the thing that brings people of color to the organization. No. I think it just highlights highlights the fact that we have a lot of white people, and it puts off people who might otherwise.
And they're doing the annoying thing where they like whine about how white their thing is.
Exactly. Totally. And you know what the largest organizations of people of color are in this country? They are unions, SEIU locals, right? Like these are like this is like by far the biggest groups of Black and brown people in this country. And the times when DSA has gotten more diverse is when we have fought and won successful campaigns with labor, and that's both like, strike support. It's things that like, partner directly with unions. It's getting unions into our electoral campaigns. Like DC DSA, after we won a race back in 2022, Unite Here 25 reached out to us and said, how can we get closer? Because you guys are winning races and we like the things you're saying. So let's operate this. Unite Here 25, that's hotel workers in DC,
Yep.
right? Like that's not our traditional base. Like Zoran's campaign activated Muslim voters that had never been activated before. That's not our traditional base. And now those people are talking about our ideas and they're willing to join us, right? Like we had a South Asians and Muslims and Arabs chat in for the campaign. And like we recruited massively out of that, right? So it's like campaigns drive people into DSA, not hemming and hawing about what our organization already is. So let's let's do that, right? Like let's go and win something and they'll want to join. Like just simple as that.
100%. And kind of like moving forward as sort of like, you listen to WHIVLP New World 22.0, good morning, comrade. Alex, Kareem, and Francis are joining us on the show. When you look, I guess, and we have about 10 minutes remaining, when you look at the next, 2 years to 4 years of the organization and how, I mean, we're in extremely tumultuous times. There is a really, I asked this question to a couple of different people who have come on the show representing DSA, but like the really hard thing that I keep seeing right now is that we have a million fires that are happening all at once. And my question is, how do you prioritize what you're going to be doing in that sort of insane climate where it feels like the bottom is falling out within the society? Alex, do you want to take that?
I'm sorry, Jeff, can you repeat that?
How do you prioritize what, an organization like DSA is going to be doing in the sort of like tumultuous, like insane situation that we're currently in? I mean, we have, the president sending, they're sending freaking National Guard and Marines into your city. And like, how do you maintain, your eye on the ball as an organization when you have like insane fires to put out all at once?
Yeah. No, it's tough. And even here in Los Angeles, like I'm part of the immigration working group here for DSA, and which is a part of the LARN, which is the Los Angeles Rapid Response Network, which has unions and different faith groups, like just like all involved because Los Angeles County is massive, right? And like and I think people who are not from here may not understand that, like, oh, well, you guys are quickly able to like get to a place or another. That's not true. You know what I mean? Like it takes an hour and a half to get from one area of LA to the other. That's maybe only 10 miles away. So like, anyways, all this to say that with everything that is going on, and I know at least personally, like these are moments where even though it's incredibly tiring and scary, and like I come from a family of immigrants, I have family members who are undocumented. It's incredibly scary. But it's also a moment that just fills me with so much joy and hope, because the way that our community has responded, and the DMs, we have a couple of videos that have gone viral talking about how to do know your rights to different businesses, to prepare businesses in case of an ICE raid, right? It's like, what are your rights as a business owner? What are your rights? And it's wild to see, like, we did a training with the Chamber of Commerce of like a different part of the city. And it's just like, at first I was like, oh, but this is what we mean in terms of like fighting back and protecting our own. And there was the first few weeks, it was very little nights of sleep, because we were going to these protests. We were in Chinatown. Francis and I actually were in Chinatown, where we got informed that there might have been a raid, or that Tom Homan was going to come and like do some kind of press conference in Chinatown. We pull up and it was like middle of the night, and so many community members are there, right? And and I know I'm not gonna cuss, Jeff, but like there was people that were just like going off, just going completely off on these FBI, like they were FBI, like when on and for Chinatown there was like 100 FBI agents or something. There were just people, just like the love. We saw this again happening when the fires were happening, when moments of immense like crisis. I think it's easy to lose hope and like feel your feels 100%, but also like lean into that solidarity, and that fuels me. When I see people like, hey, like let's pull up at this hotel. We know ICE is going there. I'm like, well, let me pull out my trumpet. I haven't played in years, but who cares?
The videos are amazing, by the way.
And you know, and now I'm seeing videos of people with their trombones out, and I'm like, that's right. You know what I mean? We got all the brass coming out.
Make some damn noise. Got a horn section now.
We got the whole horn section, you know, and then someone's like, bring the mariachi. And I was like, absolutely not. They do not deserve to be listening to our beautiful mariachi. But you know what I mean? All this to say that in these moments where they continue to crush or attempt to like just stomp on us, there are so many individuals who are like, absolutely not. Like, this is the straw, right? We saw it when in Bell in Southeast LA, with predominantly Latino. They like literally stopped, like they stopped ICE from being able to actually abduct people or kidnappers. We're not sure, right, if it's ICE or who the hell they are.
Yeah.
And it was
when you normalize on like plainclothes thugs with no identification scooping people up off the street, people are gonna just take advantage of that.
And we've already seen it. I mean, like things that people have been saying about assaulting Latinas, right, and like taking individuals. We went to a Home Depot, because that's nearby my home. They're like, hey, there's an ICE raid occurring. Me and another DSA comrade, like, let's pull up. We went. They had left at that moment, but we see the taco stand. So they weren't even, I believe they took one day worker, but then they attempted to kidnap two women that were there selling food, you know.
Wow.
And they did take one.
Real troublemakers selling food, right?
And it broke my heart. They had a tortilla maker, like they make those tortillas a manos, like by hand. Yeah. And like the husband of one came.
Probably good as hell too.
Amazing, like just like amazing food. And I just remember like just being like, I talked to my therapist, and she was helping me practice like doing some like soothing stuff, because just like to be able to even share this story. But you know, I'm telling the guy how to use the ICE locator so he can be able to like find like his loved one, and his hands like this, like he's like trying to type it, and I'm like biting my tongue, trying to keep it super calm, you know. But there's other people in the community that are like taking information. They're like, oh, I already submitted it to the rapid response. Okay, cool. Like, make sure we're not doing it twice. And then everyone walking down like people going into the Home Depot, people walking through the parking lot, and just like, okay, like who looks suspicious, you know, like, and then like, oh, what's a Home Depot? People kind of just like, you know, men just look kind of maybe a little weird sometimes, but like it's maybe not them, but it was just or people driving in like, hey, are they still here? And that's like, no, they're gone. Oh, okay, cool. We're just making sure, you know. And it's just like that amount of love that has been pouring into Los Angeles. And, you know, they said they're going to be here for 90 days. Right. And what did LA do? They're like, all right, bet we're going to be here too, you know. And more people who are getting involved, or people that are messaging me saying like, how can I get involved? I'm like, well, if you're a DSA member, we can plug you in with this, and you can go to this training. We're having a training for non-DSA members as well, people who just want to get involved. Like, we're just figuring out different ways. We did a Know Your Rights with one of the locals for SEIU, so they can get their staff to do some like the walk the blocks. We're doing so much right now. We're getting city council to also get involved, which, by the way, because we have DSA members in city council, when they cut the funding for a lot of the immigration nonprofits that were providing like legal services and social services to immigrants, what did some of our city council members do? They threw money down. They were like, all right, cool, no, keep going. And that's 100% because we have been building up that type of structure in Los Angeles, where we know, like, if this is going to be happening, we need to make sure that we have DSA members in all places. And for me, it's just like that, like, you can't break our spirit, you know. And yeah, I'll cry a lot, but I'm hitting back to the street. I got a root canal. My root canal's done. I'm hitting the street now again, you know. And I think that's something that we're seeing with a lot of people across the U.S. You know, I had DSA members from Seattle and Florida DM me and said, hey, I saw you guys doing the walk the block. Can you give me this information? Because I'm about to start it here too. And now it's happening everywhere. And I think that is so beautiful. And like, how can you not be moved by that? How could you not be inspired to do more by that?
Yeah.
And that's absolutely how I feel.
Yeah. Francis, you want to add to that?
Oh man, there's nothing to add to that. It's just, yeah. I mean, I guess just in moments like these, you know, it does make me grateful for the time that I spent in Louisiana, Jeff. Like, because I mean, talk about a place where people have just been beaten down for so long and are just still fighting and like pulling pulling that solidarity together and like just pushing forward and pushing for better. And then, you know, you see the fruits of that with like the nurses at UMC forming a union, and like it's just it's so beautiful. And like, yeah, so I think it's such a moment of crisis, and I wish that we were not all living through it. And this is why, you know, it's bad that Trump got elected president, and like maybe socialists should have like tried to stop that. But like, yeah, but it's a moment of crisis, and that also means that it's a moment where we can pull together this like strength and solidarity and just fight back.
Yeah, Kareem.
Yeah, just to answer like the specific question of like how do you prioritize in a moment like this? Like, I mean, you know, as leadership, like we don't really control how people respond to these things, right? Like we don't like marshal, like we'll send 100 people over to this protest and we're going to send 200 people to this campaign. Like that's just not how it works. Like people do the things that they feel called to do. And I think as leadership, it's like assessing what people are like organically doing and figuring out ways that we can provide resources to strengthen that, right?
How do you meet people where they're at?
Exactly. And one of the things that actually like Zoran has like kind of reinvigorated my spirit towards the big tent is you know, like it took all of the aspects of our work to get this done, and like even aspects of our work that like I've been like even like internally critical towards, like compared to like other aspects of our work. So like I think like a really good example of this is like, you know, I've been somewhat sour on like how much do like street protests actually move or like threaten power, right? Like how much does it actually like, you know, show like have the capitalist class fearful? But like it's pretty undeniable that like having 100 people, 2,000 people, 100,000 people out in the street every day since October 7th, demanding like, you know, an end to the Israeli occupation and genocide, like that lays the groundwork for somebody like Zoran to come in and say, you know, like, I believe that like we need equal rights for all people between like the river and the sea. Like this is a huge deal. And like, you know, when I'm speaking to my family, like I'm Egyptian, when I speak to my family, like they're like, you know, like floored. Like they did not believe they would ever in their lifetime hear somebody talk about Palestine and win an election, let alone just be on the stage in the way that Zoran has, right? Like it's been really moving. Like my dad is not a democratic socialist, right? Or like at least hasn't been. And he freaking bought a Zoran shirt and like it's like the biggest Zoran fan in the world because like he's talking about our issues in these ways. And like that's all to say like you know, you like you can't have an exciting campaign in this way if our members didn't already organically feel called to pressure the capitalist class in every single aspect of our work. So like you know, when we're looking at this, right, like I think it's important that like we as leaders say like, okay, there's people out in the streets, what are we going to do to support them, make sure that they're safe, we'll have bail support, we'll send people out to one police plaza. And then similarly, like, you know, okay, we've got people out canvassing today, like how are we going to make sure that we have like the resources, like are we going to have enough water, going to have enough lit? You know, that's really how prioritization happens. Like we don't decide that, our members do, and I think that's our great strength. But so like that means that it's on us as leaders to meet our members to help them meet the moment.
And on that specific point too of having someone who is running for office actually like acknowledge some kind of connection to movements that are happening in the street, that is so like that's like a unicorn in this American political system at this point, because that is something that a lot of these politicians essentially very, very intentionally for a very, very long time have chosen to refuse to do. They would cut off and even criticize the genuine like movement of people. They would, I mean, you remember 2020 when they had the street protests because of because of police violence, and what was the Democratic response was that message isn't going to fly or whatever, you know, that's going to cost us the election, and then they try and use it against it. That's over. You know, when they came at Zoran for they're still coming at Zoran for being anti-Semitic or whatever because he doesn't want to see children murdered in Palestine and starved to death. They're trying to just talk about how anti-Semitic he is, and it didn't work. And we're seeing more and more that this is not the case. So yeah, 100%. We got to meet people where they're at, and that's the way to move forward. We do need to sort of wind up. I guess we can give sort of a last word from each of y'all. We can start with Francis.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who is watching this or listening to this, I hope you will consider getting involved in DSA. If you're not already, join DSA and be a part of a mass movement. If you are involved in DSA, I hope you will be a groundwork supporter at convention, and check out our proposals and our slate, groundworkdsa.com.
Alex.
Yeah, ditto with what Francis said. And I would also add, for every worker out there, if you're involved, if you are a union member, please be involved in your union. That's how one of the other ways that you can feel and really make direct changes in your life and in other people's lives. And if you haven't unionized your workplace, I recommend that you do it. Talk to your coworkers. You start by having just a conversation with your coworkers. You don't even have to bring up the word union, and then get involved with DSA as well. It is it's a headache, but it's life-changing, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So if you are going to the convention, or you know people that are going to the convention, and you like what we had to say, check out our resolutions on our website that Francis has shared. And yeah, please, we hope you can count on your vote for the groundwork slate.
All right, Kareem.
In the words of Mayor Adams, focus, no distractions, and grind. And I think that's the mentality we're taking into convention this year. I think fundamentally, like the building DSA and being a part of DSA is the best decision I ever made. Yeah. It's put power in my hands, and it puts power in the hands of every member that joins us. And so just plus one to everything they said. I really hope you join us. And yeah, let's dismantle the great evils of our time. We're going to abolish ICE. We're going to free Palestine, and we're going to have socialism within our lifetime. So thanks very much for listening, and thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course. Well, thanks everybody for listening. And we can find, if y'all send them to me, I can post those links to all the resolutions you have going forward and any information that you want in the show notes here. And yeah, thanks everybody for listening. You can listen to us every Saturday at 10 on WHIVLP New Orleans 102.3. You can get all of our information at goodmorningcomrade.com. Thanks, guys. I really do appreciate talking with y'all. And we got to have y'all back soon. Good luck going forward, and keep in touch. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we love you. Bye-bye. Thanks so much.